So when it comes to hosting your company data and programs, both options are available. The traditional on-premises model, and more recently in the last few years, the cloud option as well. What we're going to look at first is what exactly does the company need, and what's the best solution for them. Let's take a couple of scenarios to highlight the differences. Um, if there is a company which just has one single office, and they're running some special program for their business, some line of business application that requires a server, then an on-premises server would make most amount of sense for them with different reasons. First, the performance would be quick because the data is accessed and the programs are accessed just on the local network, so it's a lot quicker. The second advantage of having it on premises is that you physically got control of your data, and you can back it up, take a USB drive with you. Some people feel comfortable doing that. And also the other benefit is they're not reliant on the internet. So if the internet link goes down, they can still use their line of business application. Now, the same company, if they had a need to access their programs and files from when they're not in the office or from a second site location, in that case, we need to think about how that can be done. So it can be done using the traditional way of setting up a virtual private network where they can securely come in from outside the office and still be able to access their data and programs. So that's another way to do this. Potentially, they could also look at the cloud option where if it's just the data that they're wanting to share, then there's a lot of online document sharing programs available. Microsoft OneDrive, SharePoint being the most popular one. There's also a Google Drive that's available. So that way they can access their data from any location, and they can give different levels of access even to people outside the organization. What they do have to think about then is the backup of that data, because most people don't realize that Microsoft, for example, has a 14-day retention policy on emails and also on data files. So if any files are deleted and they don't realize in time, then that information could be permanently gone. So there are tools available for that as well, where cloud backs up to another cloud. So that way it gives a more retention policy, and also if one cloud provider goes down, still the data is available on an alternate platform. Yeah, hybrid option is also a good idea for, especially for businesses whose internet link is not that great, because there are some locations still where NBN is not available, and other types of internet connection are quite pricey. So for those guys, a combination hybrid model could make sense, where their programs or their data can be hosted either on their own premises and the data gets backed up to the cloud overnight, which we highly recommend. In fact, it's a requirement for certain industries like finance and legal and medical, where the data must be stored offsite. So that in a way the backup is in the cloud, but the data is still hosted locally. Or the other option is where they hire space on a cloud provider like Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services, and their programs, they run in the cloud itself. They get backed up in the cloud, and a local copy of that can also be made available on their local network for speed of access. Yeah, so the three main types. One is the online document collaboration and file sharing services. So a good example could be Microsoft SharePoint or OneDrive for business. The other one is Google Drive, so where the data is stored on the cloud. Now, moving on from that, if there's a need for a special program to run which requires a server, then it can be done on a public cloud environment like Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services. And the third step from that is if people want to have their own cloud and not sharing it with the public, then they can hire rack space in a data center. So that way they can either use the equipment provided by the data center provider, or they can put their own servers, own networking equipment in there. Then they have more control, and they're also not limited by certain limitations by the public cloud providers. Yes, the first question is to look at how centralized or distributed their workforce is. So if it's very distributed, which is quite common these days with people with BYO devices, then cloud option might be a better idea for them. The other consideration is their internet speed and type of internet connection they have, because that will have a huge impact on their performance. And the third thing is the budget. So people think cloud is cheap, but we've done analysis quite a few times now. It's always more expensive than on-premises over a period of time. So the reason being that you're renting as opposed to buying. So there's less upfront costs, $0 upfront cost because you're not buying hardware. But when you add up those costs over a period of 5 years, which is the lifespan of a server, it adds up. So yeah, it depends on whether you want a capex or an opex for your business. So that also determines your the other thing is the budget or the cash flow. If the business allows it, then on-premises could be a better option for them. But if they just simply don't have the funds, then there's not many options available. They've got to go and rent in the cloud. Thank you for watching. This is Raj from SSIT, making IT simple for businesses in Sydney.